All my research is focused on the space when is the space between art and politics is the macro thematics. And I'm very interested how the artist deals or create the space for themselves, and what are the relationships with the political power. So this contribution is the third one. And the first, I started from the confirmation of the Tirana's Boulevard, which is, for my opinion, one of the clearest examples where art and politics organizes the space. The title, Production of Artistic Subjectivity in Albania, means when I say Albania, I intend the Albanian as a state. So from 1912, the Albanian is independent from the Ottoman Empire. So from that period and further. We have a tradition where the politics has always oriented the art scene. This is history. So from the beginning, Albania has, let's say, suffered the censorship. We have examples from the 20s, for the 30s, where the people were not published or couldn't express freely their opinions. So after, even with the fascist invasion, of course, was the censorship. After the Second World War, with the dictatorship of Enver Hoxha, was, of course, the censorship. And with the fall of the regime of the dictatorship, we didn't realize very much this argument, which is the creation of the artistic subjectivity. So let's say that we don't have a culture of artistic independency from the political power. It's a little bit harsh, but from the 1991, when the regime was totally changed, let's say, all the artists were in the condition as all the Albanians. So very poor and without any perspective. It means that it was a sort of under proletariat. I'm talking in Marxist terms. Under proletarians are that social strata which, for impossibility, economic or cultural, they don't have a social consciousness. So we have to deal with this kind of situation. And this means that even the artists of the period post-socialist dictatorship period didn't have very much possibility to realize themselves as in other countries of the former Eastern Bloc or in the Western Bloc. So with this lack of consciousness, even in the post-dictatorship period, the art scene was used as a tool for political power. I want to start here with a quote of Gilles Deleuze, and reading a bit. In very general terms, we claim that there are two ways to appeal to necessary distractions. That of the poet, who speaks in the name of a creative power, capable of overturning all orders and representations in order to affirm difference, in the state of permanent revolution, which characterize eternal return. And that of the politician, who is above all concerned to deny that which differs, so as to conserve or prolong an established historical order, or to establish a historical order which already calls forth in the world the forms of its representation. The two may coincide in particularly agitated moments, but they are never the same. By this definition, we can find a sort of hic et nunc, an possibility, a clear line that divides politicians and artists. In a certain point, for different reasons, social, cultural, political, we have in this period a prime minister, which is an artist also. As I see it, is a further control on the art scene. For example, from the time of Italian fascists, when they invaded Albania, the Albania, because it was very degraded with the fall of Ottoman Empire, looked to the fascist construction of the boulevard as something very artistic that Albanians couldn't compete with them. And in the name of the modernity, they assumed that form of art as an art form which came from abroad, but even from with this top-down direction, because it was the political power that decided to invest in the boulevard. And you can find this kind of indirect influence on the context. With Enver Hoxha's regime, we have a direct influence on the art scene, because they decided that beyond socialist realism, the art doesn't exist. So is a further gaining territory on a certain space, which could be an artistic space or cultural space. Then, in this case, when we have a political, which is a prime minister, which is also an artist, we have a further turn of the screw And from indirect, direct, we have an immediate influence on the art scene. So I see it as sort of consecutive itinerary in this controlling the art scene. And this quote is taken by the first book of Edi Rama, called The Reflections, in 1991, when he was one of the protesters against the regime. And in this quote, Edi Rama also sees as Gilles Deleuze some problems between the artist and politician. The artist's duty as the god's protégé is to never betray the truth. Duty which very often has to forget since the beginning of its way the politician as the protégé of a certain strata or specific clan or of people. So at the beginning, even our prime minister saw this kind of hic et nunc between art and politics. In 1998, Edi Rama was the Minister of Culture. And then, after a few years, he became the mayor of Tirana. He really changed the not only social context, but even the artistic context with his intervention, especially with the painting of the facades of the buildings. And this action was made in collaboration with Anri Sala, which also made a video about it called Dammi Colori. And from 1998 till 2013, Edi Rama became the prime minister. So we can see even here consecutive development of its career. But I saw this quote was taken by some French journalists the day of the elections, when Edi Rama didn't yet know that he will be the Prime Minister of Albania. I didn't become Edi Rama because of the politics. I was Edi Rama before. If I stay in politics, is for doing something. I have a problem with death. It comes from the fact that I'm an artist. I have a problem with death and history. I want to leave a name. I will explain later what it means. I'm not interested for anything else. I do politics to fight the idea of death. As we know, he's a sort of hero, because only heroes can fight with the death. We have a lot of traditional folk fairy tales that speaks about it. So we see here the death and this kind of hero that wants to fight against it. It's important, the repetition of the name. I didn't become Edi Rama because of politics, so I was before Edi Rama. It's important. And at a certain point, I want to leave a name. What does it mean? I don't know in other languages, but in Albania, it has a meaning that I want to be renowned, and renowned with honor. this is the meaning of this phrase. So the name is very important. The name, as you know, if you can see in Sigmund Freud's masterpieces, the name is belongs to the ego, you know. So this is very important. What does it mean, this name, this compulsory emotional directive to have a name, to inscript his name in the history? In art history, for example, I like very much the period of Venetian period in the 15th and 17th till 17th century, and we have here a Vivarini piece with in collaboration with Giovanni Alemagna, and it is a sort of horror vacui. Horror vacui in that period, the people understood that the Roman, the Pope in Rome doesn't represent really the spirit of the religion. We are here in 4044. So some decades after will come the Protestant, let's say, revolution within the church. So this kind of emptiness by the artist was expressed in this kind of paintings, just over painting figures of saints, of Saint Mary and all other personas in the Bible. And it demonstrates exactly the contrary of what it is. We have also the doodles of Edi Rama that has made during his daily work as Prime Minister. And he has this kind of office with all its doodles. And for me, it demonstrates exactly what demonstrates the Vivarini painting, the Giovanni Alemagna's painting. So a lack of something, an emptiness that he wants to fulfill. So it's important here because even here you can see the history represented. Ismail Cemali, the man on the photo, is our father of independence. So you can see a connection, what Deleuze says, the inscription in an order of history by a politician. Also, is not only the history, is even the space. You have Angela Merkel. So is this kind of synthesis in time and space that is coming in this photo. I'm sorry, this is a quote that everyone uses during the presentations. It's not so original. It's Paul Klee painting and some thoughts of Walter Benjamin. And Benjamin sees this Angelus Novus as a sort of figure that is contrasted with the history. Okay? He says the angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel cannot no longer close them. The storm irresistibly propels him into the future to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress. And it's very important, for my opinion, this pile of debris, because it's what I can read by my reality. Also, my reading the Albanian reality is a sort of pile of debris, is something that is cut it off always and always without no a logic articulation or complete articulation. Every time we have to deal with this kind of history. And this is the angel and the storm in front of him. And without any, I think, intention, I was 2 years ago, a little bit more or less, making an exhibition in Zeta Gallery called The Chronic, because the chronic for me means chronos, means Saturn, that eats his sons because he is afraid that his sons will kill him. So he always cut pieces of his sons. Chronos is the god of the time, but limited time. In ancient Greek culture, Aion is the time of gods. This one is not a real god. He's a god with some complexes. And I was making this exhibition because two artists, Matilda Odovashi, which is this painting is her painting, and Dritan Huska were very involved in this kind of objects, because even the figures, the human figures, humanoids, are treated as objects, as some storm has pushed them somewhere in the space. And Dritan Huska has always these pieces of architecture. You can see Tirana already, especially the quartiers, with all this chaotic conformation, architectonic conformation. So I was dealing with this kind of exhibition, and then came Sead Kazanjiu with this painting, and I saw it immediately as a director, the contrary of the Angelus Novus. Is the contrary. It's exactly the director who organizes all the piles of debris. So all these pieces were coming and without any intention. Sead Kazanjiu doesn't have any connection with Paul Klee, if not indirectly. So it's not an intention to have some connection with Paul Klee building. Sead Kazanjiu is an artist, Roma ethnicity, and the Romas in 2014 were erased by the government, which destroyed their homes because of a new street in the new Tirana ring. And in its imaginary, we can see this kind of situation. As a director that is playing a symphony and all the little houses under his feet. Sead has other works. He made some small houses that he saw in Roma tradition, and make this kind of. We made this here in National Museum. Also, was an installation and a paper on the wall. Generally, when the stairs finished, is a space, but here is only a wall. And Sead decided to make a letter to Santa Claus as the children to ask for a home. These are some photos. This is my installation with another girl and Roma activists. The installation is called Diamo I colori. As Dami colori, the Roma people were trying to give some colors to the politics to save their homes, because they thought that our politicians were very passionate about opera, because you know that Dami colori of Angri Sala and Edi Rama is a verse of an opera. So they were trying to make themselves beautiful for the political power and to save their homes. Was entitled Erasure, Shiria in Albanian. And I made a theatrical piece this year, so 1 year after, because even after the protest, after our exhibitions, nothing changes. The houses of Roma were destroyed, and today were given only 2 years, money for 2 years for the rent. So after 2 years, you can find some other place, but is not on the competency of the government. And I make another work, which was theater pieces from Jonathan Swift. A Modest Proposal is called, when we have this politician that have the genius idea to solve the problem of the poor children on the street. And he says, okay, let's eat them. So this was more harsh, but even after this, nothing changes. So I feel a little bit without any further possibility to express what I feel and what the people in reality feels. How it is possible? It is possible because our political power is not so naive. We are in Albania, but we are very, very good in controlling. I saw an article in journal where Anri Sala was saying something about Albanian artists and Albanian art scene. What is strictly desperately absent is a truly artistic scene where visions and desires are discussed, not a place where frustrations at missed opportunities are vented. When a more positive and altruistic approach takes place, it is quite likely that a new scene will take shape in life, a scene that will create more space, dialogue, energy, positivity, true criticism, genuine desire to participate, which will ultimately improve the quality of local institutions and will awaken the interest of the institution and international curators, which would, as encouraging as it would be vital for our young artists, etc., etc. He was talking about the government of Edi Rama, and he is supporting in a certain sense. And you see all this positivity that artists, the art scene must have towards what is organized by our politicians. But in the same article, we see Anri Sala's curator saying something else. Ever since I saw the interview in 1998, it has left an impression on me. At first sight, it's a fairly simple work, almost a diary or a confession, but essentially very complex. It is a sort of detective story which uncovers that the perpetrators and the victim are the very same person, Anri Sala's mother, who in this work somehow embodies a metaphor of an entire nation. You see, the curator of Edi Rama, of Anri Sala, sees him as more focused on detective story. So, in detective stories, we have this kind of figure that he dubbed on everything. Is nothing positive in a detective. He has to question everything. So is the contrary what Anri Sala is telling to the Albanian art scene. And this was on the same article. Generally speaking, interview highlights a typical characteristic of all totalitarian regimes and all ideologies: the invasion of language, the subtle and invisible violence in which language takes shape, where it is transformed and emptied of all meaning. So, the curator is telling us something totally different. What we see, what he sees on Anri Sala's work. And I don't know why Anri Sala wants all this positivity, altruistic approach, etc., etc. Okay, I missed a slide. I found a text, is online. It's called Creating Space Where There Seems to Be None. It's Anri Sala with interviewing Edi Rama and Philippa Renault and some others, Erion Veliaj, which is our actual mayor. I didn't want to enter very deeply in that, but it's only the title that is fantastic. Creating space where there seems to be none is a non-logic. Because if you create space where there seems to be none, it seems to be none, so it is some space there. So how can you create it? but it's a text that they think is very artistic. And in a certain point, Henry Salak, talking about Rama, called him reality planer. Reality planer is our prime minister. But beyond that, this reality planner has created a society, Atelier Albania, which controls all the constructions in Albania now. So all the competitions are managed by Atelier Albania, which are Henry Salak's friends, this studio, 51 and 4E, which has built the TID Center, and also the square here, the main square. And the architecture, the International Architecture Biennale of Rotterdam, where Henry Salak and even Edi Rama are several times invited there. So they are controlling all the profits, what are behind on the space. So are managing always this kind of space, but now in the name of art. Are also controlling the public institutions, because you have to know that our public institutions of art, but even the others, I guess, but I know better the art institutions, are controlled directly by our Minister of Culture and Edi Rama. And you cannot open the documents of the competition because they have open calls for competition. They choose the director of a certain institution, but you cannot see what it is in the platforms, for example, of. So the national institutions are almost empty institutions because, for example, they cannot ask for more money. When the director is decided by the government, cannot ask money because they could try to remove from that place. For example, 2 years ago, the National Gallery had a budget, year budget, $25,000 per year. And you can imagine with that money you cannot make anything. But in the same time, in the same year, Edi Rama opened COD, Center for Openness and Dialogue. And everyone can find some analogies with the programmatic, political views of Edi Rama and his rhetoric. But code means even codification. So if you have to find art, you have to find this art codified by the political power. But I want to talk even for the socialist period art. And I found in the same place, in the boulevard, where the power expressed themselves with these representative buildings, a building which is called Pyramid of Tirana. I want to invite here Mr. Pirro Vaso to help me talking about that a little bit. Thanks for your presence here.
Thanks for having me here. It's an honor to explain or to give you some illustration about this time of designing the pyramid. So Romeo invited me to explain.
I was very, very interested because with the period of socialism, dictatorship, etc., we erased some things that were not so bad. For example, was the working group. In the case of Pyramid, is a work of a group of architects. And in our days, it's very, very difficult to find this, especially in the boulevard. And what I saw in the pyramid is that the pyramid has three different things that makes the pyramid the most performed monument by the people on the boulevard. For me, it was very simple. The pyramid is constructed out of the axis of the boulevard. It's a bit decentrated. Is the interruptions of the verticality, so is like this, and the use of the glass, which has this kind of transparency that for me was very important because I thought were the main things that permitted people to get involved with that building. But it's more interesting to see the beginning of all.
First of all, I'll try to make a very brief and to show you some key points. Like we group of architects, we were 4 architects assigned to design this building. The decision was by leadership of Party of Labor of Albania, Communist Party of Albania at that time, to honor at that time this time period leader. And normally they wanted a good building, a monument for Enver Hoxha. So our group, it was before not easy duty. We took that order to design the building. I'm not calling pyramid because nobody said that it would be a pyramid. On, I think, beginning was June or July 1985, so 30 years ago. So it's a long time.
And 3 months after the Enver Hoxha's death.
Yeah, and they wanted that the museum to be finished on October 1988. So after 3 years. So 3 years, design, construction, and finish. Impossible time for the possibilities of construction, Albanian construction industry at that time. But first for us. So we started and we made a kind of agenda with some points where to be focused and to design, how to design this building. And I agree with Romeo that called very controversial building. It is, because it was a building to honor Enver Hoxha, but at the same time, our intention, it was surely to make a very good building, but at the same time, like, because at that time we were just young, 30-something years architects, so, and we were focused and we considered that a chance to make a modern architecture work in Albania.
In the group of architects, I must say that were Pranvera Hoxha, Clement Kolaneci,
yeah, two of
Vladimir
two of architects were related to Enver Hoxha family.
So
Pranvera was the daughter and Clement was
So it's very,
son on the law.
very important, this kind of dynamic, because nobody can suspect on you when you were experimenting in this kind of building.
No, that's the reason I told you that we consider a chance to make something that nobody can push us for something that we don't like, or to censor self, to make something that to be on the standards of, traditional architecture. So we saw like a chance to make something different. But telling the truth, during the last year of that system, especially in the first 5 or 80s, there were done some good examples of modern architecture in Albania. Because starting with this new museum, it was inaugurated in 81, I think, yeah. And then in 86, it was the Palace of Congresses, and that was like the last building of that
Important
period.
building.
Yeah.
What is this?
That's. I wanted to tell that how we started working. First of all, to explain, because you will understand better where the building is situated. I mean the site. The site it is in the main boulevard of Tirana, but the main boulevard of Tirana is not like today, that only cars you see. At that time, it was full of people, so it was like a walking avenue. And on the north side of this site, it was a river Lana, and now it's not anymore iconic, but at the time it was iconic building of Hotel Daiti, one of the best in Tirana. On the east side, it was a residential area with low-rise villas full of, green gardens.
Of the Italian period.
Yeah, and which was very well conserved. And far east, it was the main Tirana's treasure, the landscape of Mountain Daiti. At that time, it was clear, Mountain Daiti, not only, tall buildings. On the south side, it was another iconic building, the government building of Prime Minister. So our duty is to design a building that can consider all these conditions, to respect the iconic buildings that I mentioned, like Hotel Daiti and Prime Minister building, and to be integrated in the landscape, in this main landscape, which is Mountain Daiti behind.
And what about the star here?
Star is connected with Enver Hoxha figure. At the time when he passed away, he died, the children started drawing some stars on the playground. And we thought to use like a starting point.
Yeah,
The starting point for considering how to raise this building, this museum for him.
So this is very important because generally we called it pyramid, but it's not a pyramid. And someone else called it Enver Hoxha's mausoleum, but was Enver Hoxha's museum for the socialist period. So for the successes and all, to promote all the period. So you have used the form of the star to conclude in that kind of conformation of building.
No, it's just how can I say, a schematic start. We needed to have a kind of symbol, and that symbol at the time it was drawn by children, pioneers on the ground. And we thought that it was a good start to make this building. But it was naive to consider that all this building will have the shape of a star in volume. So during the designing period of time, and it was very intensive work, we tried to, and we worked, because today there are many good means to draw, like AutoCAD and all this other stuff. Maybe you know. At the time, it was only our pencil, hand drawings, and molding clay to make models. And we started making models, and we starting to make this star first and to raise this up. And after that, considering different options, everything, was changes, reshaped, overlapped, and until the end, it was this kind of volume that now you see there. Only those are only the models we tried. It was the procedure of the designing.
But everyone contributes it modeling?
Sure. That was the teamwork. And really in that case, we worked like a team, a real team.
Yes, and all of you were awarded with a first-class medal?
Oh, you mean
after
the construction? Yeah, it was this prize or award of Republic Pride. So we have been honored with the first class, all the 4 architects.
And what about the interior? How will you see it as a functionality? I mean.
Oh yeah, that's. The whole building was conceived at the same time, interior, exterior. And about the interior, we needed to design a museum. But even in that case, it was a kind of, I can call a speculation from us, because it was not a final program. How, for example, the client didn't say that we need this hole for that, this hole for that. So our design was focused on really in modern architecture standards. We worked and used the open plan concept. That means that at a certain time it will be, everything displayed for a museum, and this kind of plan allowed in the renovation, adaptation in the future. But at the same time, like it happened, it was very possible to change also the functions, to make place for other functions. And all this interior layout, it was not like a rigid, floor plans, but it was all the plans designed like a mezzanines that created a big amphitheater look. And also, this kind of layout created the possibility to have some good acoustics. So at that time, I think in 90s, after the change, the system also was used, this pyramid, for some concerts, and the sound was hearing very, very good. So even in that kind of technique, it was good. What can I say?
I wanted just to ask one last thing, because I'm a little bit fixed, I know, but with this interruption of the verticality, we have talked with each other, and you told me something with an Italian historian of architecture.
Oh no, that was for when I and my other colleague Clement, who passed away last week, were students. We have a very rare visit in university because at that time, like everybody knows, it was not that easy to communicate with, especially with foreigners. But Italian architect professor make a visit to University of Tirana and told about his experience. He's a big author of 7 volumes that are named Architectura Practica. But we remembered advice that he gave to us. Don't touch mountain diving. Keep that landscape like a jewel for Tirana. And that was the first point that we remembered when started that building. But also because I didn't say that it's important, like you say, we consider this building to be viewed from 360 degrees. So it's not a pyramid. It's a very complicated building. So you can look in space and time, like in Cubist movement. So to understand the whole building, and mostly the fifth facade, which is the cover. Finally, when we did all this work, the final shape is our wings of our double-headed eagle, which is our national symbol. So it's only another plus for that building. Mm-hmm. So that was the story how was created this building. So it is controversial because it started from order to honor a communist leader, a dictator, but the result is that I think we did our job to create a modern building. Unfortunately, not survived to the time.